Winky face.
That's alright.
Buzz.
Beat it. Oh,
Buzz.
I'm on first.
Hang on, hang on. Bzz. Hey everyone, I'm Dan, and I'm here to teach you about the power of Symmetra.
Hello.
Symmetra is a hero that has been reworked multiple times and even started off as a support hero. But since her latest rework, I haven't been able to stop playing her, now racking up over 700 hours on her and getting to top 500 in multiple seasons. Symmetra is a damage hero that is super interesting due to the utility she can provide to herself, her team, and a lot of situations in the game. She can allow the team to skip entire areas of maps, escape deadly ultimate combos, and even enable friendly ultimate combos.
I'm on a roll.
She can output crazy damage at close range, get tricky with turrets, and protect the team with a map-wide shield. This video will cover the ins and outs of her weapon, her abilities, and provide you with the tips and tricks you'll need to get the most out of her entire kit. Symmetra's weapon has both a left click and a right click. Let's focus on the right click first, as it's the default choice since it doesn't have a range limitation. Symmetra right click is a projectile that needs to be charged up. After 1 second of charging, it will reach max damage, which is 120. Note that you don't have to hold it until it fires, just until the inner ring reaches the outer ring. You can fire it off before max charge, or even after. Messing with the timing in which you fire out the projectile can throw your opponents off. The right click is what you'll be using most, and you should generally be looking to spam chokes with right clicks as often as possible. This will apply a lot of pressure to the main combat area, no matter what range you're at. However, when you're close range, you want to focus on Symmetra's left click. While her right click is the bread and butter, your real goal is to get close range she can charge up her beam. It has a 12-meter range and 3 stages of damage, which will ramp up when you're hitting a target. If you can manage to get your beam up to stage 3 while surviving, you'll feel the true power of Symmetra's damage output and destroy everything in your path. It is dangerous though, as you are a low health hero fighting at close range, so be very careful when you try to go for it. Here's some things to note with the left click. You will regain ammo when shooting shields, so you're great at burning down shields. You can charge the beam up on abilities like Mei's Ice Wall or Zarya's Barrier, or even Torbjorn's Turret. The power of the beam is indicated on your weapon. The display changes based on the skin you're using, but it's usually quite obvious. The beam hitbox is rather large, giving you leeway on how precise you need to be. Symmetra's turrets are the first ability you want to get familiar with. Symmetra can place 3 turrets at once, and they're placed by throwing them through the air, and when they collide with a wall, they'll attach to it. Once attached, they will attack any targets that come within a 10-meter range, dealing 40 damage per second and slowing enemies. A lot of people ask for turret spots, but I believe it's best to use turrets more dynamically since every game is different, with differing heroes that you're against, different maps, and different players on those heroes. While the main use of turrets is to set them up around a choke, as that will generally be the main area of engagement, it's good to think about what heroes the enemy team is running and adjust your placements accordingly. To simplify this, you can think about using your turrets offensively, defensively, or somewhere in between. For example, if the enemy team has a flanker, or your supports are struggling as they're being attacked a lot, it can be a great idea to keep your turrets around your supports so that any flanker that comes around has a much harder time trying to take down your supports. If the enemy team is playing much slower, you can try set up your turrets in positions where they may get a pick as they push in. This is where stacking 3 turrets on top of each other can be really powerful, since when you stack all 3 turrets on top of each other, they will all attack the same target at the exact same time, surprising whoever they attack. Tucking them away in an area where an enemy support may go for cover could result in a kill, or throwing them up on the high ground where a Pharah may come over may also result in a kill. If the enemy team is playing kinda standard, then setting them up in the choke may be your best option. Something else to think about instead of having spots for turrets is to move them around as often as possible. If the enemy team pushes once and they kill your turrets, likely it is they'll be ready to take them down the next time they push. You can move them to slightly different locations to make it more difficult for the enemy team to react to your turrets. As we move on to talking about the teleporter, it's very good to note that you can send turrets through your teleporter, known as turret bombing. The teleporter is what makes Symmetra so unique, and it has endless possibilities. Symmetra Teleporter has a 30-meter range, the entry point will be placed at her feet, and the exit point at the target location. There are so many things you can do with the teleporter that it's hard to cover them all. So I'm going to rapid fire a bunch of teleporter possibilities that you can add to your repertoire, but it's always good to be thinking about what you can do with it based on your team, your ultimates, the map, your enemies, and your enemy ultimates, etc. Anyway, the teleporter can be used to bypass difficult choke points, the most well-known being Hanamura. Instead of walking through the choke point and taking a lot of damage, you can teleport your entire team to the point and just defend from there, flipping the attack into a defense. Set up the teleporter behind a wall on defense against dive. When a Winston or Hammond comes in for the dive, you can just TP to the other side of the point, resulting in them wasting their cooldowns and allowing you to get to safety. You can use the teleporter to escape scary threats like Zaya's Grav or Nano Blade. If you throw this down just as the Grav hits or the Blade comes in, you can often get your entire team out of there safely. Thinking about what ultimates the opponent may have at any given time is very important for good teleporter usage. If there is an enemy up on a high ground who is difficult to deal with, you can send your team up with a teleporter. This could result in your team killing them outright, or at least pushing them off high ground so they no longer have that advantage. You can use the teleporter to combo ultimates, one of the most powerful being the Telly D.Va bomb combo. If you ask D.Va to place her bomb on the ground, you can telly it right past the enemy to surprise them with a bomb on the backline. This works best against shield-based comps as they will be comfortable behind their shield, not realizing that it will appear behind them. For turret bombs, you can place 2 turrets on the ground, then place the teleporter, then throw in the 3rd turret. The telly will finish constructing as the 3rd turret hits the ground. Then you can go through with your 3 turrets and see if you can take someone down on the other side. This is really powerful if you see a support who seems unprotected. If a couple of your teammates die, but you're still alive, then you can set your teleporter up to get them back from spawn faster. A lot of players will leave their teleporter at spawn to allow people to get back faster all game, but due to the amount of uses that teleporter has, I really can't recommend this. It's much better to do it reactively. Overall though, the teleporter has an incredible amount of uses, and its use changes with each game you play. So always be thinking about what you can do with the teleporter, and think outside the box. Symmetra's ultimate is a giant shield that splits the entire map wherever it's placed. It has thousands of hit points and lasts for 12 seconds. It's good to note that you can rotate the shield if you press your ultimate button a second time, allowing for different angles. Which brings us to the 2 main ways to use the ultimate, aggressively and defensively. The most obvious way to use the wall is defensively. You can put up the wall to block damage if you're defending a point, or even to block specific ultimates like Deadeye, Roadhog's Whole Hog, or Pharah's Barrage if your timing is great. The other way to use it though is to rotate it and split the map down the middle. This allows your team to be much more aggressive, since they don't just have to stay behind the wall. If you're pushing and you split the attack with the shield, it allows your team to weave in and out of the shield as needed as they push, instead of just waiting behind it hoping for a pick. This is great for attacking points or just taking a more dynamic battle, and this should honestly be how it's used most of the time since it covers the biggest flaw of our ultimate: people backing off. If you just use your wall defensively, then the enemy team can decide to back off and wait for it to time out. However, if you split the map, your team can move up with the shield instead of just waiting behind it, even if the enemy team decides to back off a bit. To finish things off here, I wanted to talk about Symmetra's playstyle. While I think Symmetra is an extremely versatile hero due to all of the possibilities with her abilities, she's definitely strongest when played with and against shields. Without shields to charge your weapon upon, you have to play a lot trickier to get value out of Symmetra, by baiting cooldowns with Teleporter and getting big value out of your turrets. If you're just picking Symmetra up, I recommend playing her when your team has a mobile tank like Reinhardt that you can stay with and focus on using your beam as much as possible, while staying safe behind the shield. While you do this, you can think about the best times and places to put your Teleporter and turrets depending on your team's heroes, the map, and the enemy team's heroes. Remember, there are a lot of things you can do with turrets and tellers, so always be trying to think outside the box and adapting as needed. Whew! That was a lot to take in. Hopefully you picked up a few tricks for Symmetra along the way. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good night. Peace!